2022 Kinetic Half 70.3. This year we're going to do this video with the Olympic and the sprint, but we're just going to go in order. So we're going to have the half here, and then we're going to run through the Olympic and the sprint all together in here. So if you are not doing the half, feel free to skip ahead to the Olympic and the sprint. Some of the insights are going to be very similar to that, so if you want to stick around, go for it, or if not, just find your spot in the video. I will link it down below. So this is the half course right here. This is the swim portion. It will go out a little bit further. If you switch to the Olympic, notice it's the same swim course out here. So what's going to happen is the swim course is going to extend a lot further beyond this point right here. This is the Olympic right here. The half is going to extend probably past the tree line out on the sides over here. And that's okay. I think they did an overhead of the transition. Yep, you still can't see it though. But jumping ahead to the transition, this is going to be very similar for all the events over here. Transition zone is over here, check-in is up here, and you just make your way down the row to the transition area. Park over here. As you check in, you literally just walk right to the transition area. If you get all of your stuff and then go back, it creates a little bit of an extra walk. If that's okay to you, that's okay to you. Swim out is here, in is here. You're going to run through the beach over here. They're going to have little pools right there no matter what distance you're doing, so make sure you step into those pools to get the sand off of your feet. They will probably have those lined along the sidewalk over here, and then you'll run up the concrete sidewalk through a little grassy area to the transition area up here. Keep in mind that this is uphill, and it is a major zigzag. What they typically do is have little flags out here to prevent you from cutting the corner, but that doesn't stop most people. So just be prepared for a sharp corner right there, and you're going to not want to do it, but you just have to do it. Heading into the transition area, you're going to come in where my cursor is, get your bike, and then come out over here. Bike out, you're going to run through this parking lot and then on the dismount line right here. Notoriously tough start for any distance you're doing here. The mount line right here is right at the base of a steep uphill right here, so make sure you're in an easier gear setting up over here. Inversely, when you are coming back in at the end of your bike, no matter what distance you're doing, the dismount line is going to be here, kind of a blind corner. There will be, or a blind dismount line, there will be people on the corner and a little bit further up telling you to slow down, but it won't matter if you don't listen to them. So come over here a little gingerly, because you're going to have to really clamp down on the brakes right through here to stop. Every year we see people crash or fall or whatever, blow through the dismount line, get a 2 or 4 minute penalty all the way back down through here because they're not paying attention. They're trying to maximize as much time as possible, where in reality you only save 2 or 3 seconds max if you just fly and then slam on the brakes right here. So keep that in mind on race day. Do not be one of the stories where you're going too fast and you try to stop and put your plastic shoe out on the floor and you just slide out and you crash at the end of your bike. But after that, you'll have a run-in back over here, and it is a bit of an aggressive turn when you're not on your bike right here. So keep that in the back of your head once you're off the bike, and then it is a little bit of a jog to the transition area over here. So you might want to keep the bike or the shoes on the bike for a little bit faster transition right there. Coming out of transition, the run out is over here. You'll have to run through people probably in this section over here. There's just so much room, or there's just only so much room for people to be, and most of the time they will be on that walkway. So make sure you have your head on a swivel and you don't run into a kid or a volunteer or just another spectator right there. There will be a little mini aid stations at some point throughout this time right here. I would highly encourage you to utilize that aid station, because once you make this left-hand turn, the intensity is going to start and you are going to be running up a hill. At the end of your running loop, if you're doing the half, 3 loops, Olympic 2, and then the sprint is only a 1, the run-in for all of these are right here. So you're going to come right here and you're going to pass the finish line, hook back on over again, run past the transition and up the hill again. You're going to do that 3 times for the half, 2 for the Olympic, and 1 for the sprint. And then the finish line is right there. So, digging into course specifics now for the half. The half right here, there's really only two ways for the water to swirl, in a clockwise pattern or a counterclockwise pattern. And what will happen here is this intensity will be at its highest peak right through where my cursor is going right now. Once you start to get a little closer to shore, it starts to back off a bit. And once you start to get further out, it starts to back off. But there is still some influence through that point, through these points way out here. If it's pushing you this way, right, you're going to have to aim on the way back in. You're typically going to have to aim to around where you started. If it's pushing you this way to the right, you're going to have to aim further off, and it's going to feel like you're aiming away from the finish, but in reality you are not. At the swim start, keep in mind there are a couple of posts that are up. You'll be able to see them. Sometimes they spray paint them, sometimes not. But make sure you know where those are, because every year 2 or 3 people swim into those posts left over from the old dock. On race day, what is going to happen is you are going to be flying out of the gates over here, and if you're not, it's going to get easy to get sucked in. I highly encourage you to get sucked in for the first couple of buoys over here, as long as you cut it off. And again, this is not the full swim course. This is the Olympic swim course, but it's structured the exact same, just bigger. The reason I'm telling you to get sucked in is I want you on those feet. You know, I want people to do the work for you. So being included in the riff raft is great. I would encourage you to be up front of that riff raft if possible, just because that's going to help when the separations come, and they will. You're going to be on the positive side of those separations, and you're still going to have faster people doing the work for you. If you're on your max, your limit, that is too fast out here. I want you think about 80%. 80-90% for a little bit, and then calm it back down into your swimming zone. And again, if you do it correctly, you're going to have a lot of people doing a lot of work for you, right? What should be happening is you're playing leapfrog all the way up, and you're riding the coattails off of other people. Now, if you do need to do work, that is A-okay. But strategy A is going to have other people do the work for you, especially at these early season races. Once you get out into the far side of the lake over here, these turns are a little bit trickier than they appear just in general, purely because you run out of the tree line over here and the sun gets exposed to you a little bit. And that kind of changes the game a bit. The water reacts a little different, and it's a lot deeper out there. So again, the water is reacting differently again out there. When you're out there, make sure you're sighting off of that buoy and see what is happening. If you're getting pushed one way, make sure you make an adjustment, okay? And keep that in the back of your head for when you come back in. If you're just swimming out here aimlessly, following people and not paying attention to what is happening, you're going to pay for it later on coming back into the shore. This stretch right here, it is, I call this the graveyard right through here, not because it's dangerous, it's just because all these people that exploded on the way out, they really suffer through this point right here. It's a little bit longer than you want it to be, so you feel like you're going even slower than you are. It's purely a mental game right here. Don't feel like you're not doing well, because in reality you probably are. It's just longer than you think it is in this section right here. Always, every year. Last turn out on course, yep, there's only 2 turns, but the last turn out on course, again, if you thought this one was hard, this one's going to be really hard, okay? This is probably going to be the point at which the current or top current, so like the top current affects you the most out here. And if you were paying attention to what's happening over here, you're going to be much better off at this back section back through here. Again, you should be playing leapfrog with people, catching up to people, letting them do the work, and then when they start to explode, leapfrog and finding the next person. If you find that you are actively pulling a group of 4 or 5 people, at this point it is when you should actually shut things down, let them go in front, and them do some work for a little bit. Don't be afraid to play some games over here. That is only if you are actively pulling a major group of people. If you're pulling 1 or 2 people, I wouldn't really worry about it. But if it does start to get a bit of annoying, then you can start to play some games, as long as you think you're ahead of the bulk of the people out on the race day. If you find that you're kind of mid-pack, I wouldn't play those games. I would simply swim your race. Right around where my cursor is right now, that is the point at which you should start to increase the rate of speed of your kick. That's going to help get the blood back in the legs. It's going to help you survive that little T1 all the way to the bike racks through there. And that is the swim in a nutshell. So this is the half course. And if we back up here, you can see that on your Training Peaks race plan, you'll see you have 3 different targets to hit. You're going to have specific targets for you to hit. We got Ride with GPS data up here, and that will pull up a little profile by the course. And we will also have a best bike split thing for you to hit. That's your race target and specific power that we will dive into in a couple of minutes here. And the last thing that you're going to have is a cheat sheet. I'm not going to click on that because it's going to give away who this is. On the run, you are going to have a image of, theoretically, there we go, here it is, wrong one, wrong button. You are going to have a target for you to hit, and that is another thing that we're going to be breaking down a lot more in depth in a couple of minutes. But you also have the Ride with GPS data, so you can see the elevation chart over there. So make sure you head over to your Training Peaks, and all of this will be there for you. So let's dig into this half course. So as we talked about before, this is a, let's call it a 2-loop bike course with a little bit on either side. So when you come out of the water, right, you're going to climb up, and that is the first section out on course that we got to talk about. This is the right at the very beginning. It's as close as I can get in this video, and it's about a 2% incline right off the bat. I would think that it's probably closer to a 4.5% coming out of the lake right there. So that's why you're going to need to be in an easy gear. And you can see that this uphill lasts pretty much the whole way out of that state park, and that is right now. But once you get up after about a mile or so, that starts to flatten out a bit. And you're going to have times where you're even going downhill, but again, it's going to be a false flat is what it's going to be. So you're going to be working the whole time coming out of the park. After that, you're going to head on to the left-hand side of this route, this map right over here, and then you're going to do this circle 2 times out on race day, and then you're going to come back in. You're going to peel off through here, and then you're going to dive back down through the state park. It's going to be pretty quick, hopefully. Digging into the best bike split power data. Over here, we're going to take the speed away so you can, hopefully, yeah, there we go, look at this a little bit easier. And so on the face, you can see that we have a bit of elevation to climb. Yep, for sure. I don't know if they list it off of the... yeah, they do not list it over here, but we can tell you it's about 2,000 feet of climbing. There is for sure a fair bit of climbing, but what you'll notice is for the majority of the time, you're going to have pretty consistent numbers. So for this athlete, around the 200 mark is going to be where they will have a lot of power put out over this course. And take a look at yours. If you have power, if you're running power, you're going to have one of these as well. Everyone's going to have this plan up there, and you're going to be able to see at what point you should be going a little harder and at what point you should be going a little easier. You can see here, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that some of this higher power is going to come through that first little section, those first 5 miles that we talked about. So up until about here. And that is at this point out on course. So that's much past the state park exit right there. So just because you leave the state park doesn't mean you're still going flat or downhill or get a little bit of a break. That's why you need to watch your power and hit some of those targets that are out there. You're going to have some spikes coming out of it, right? This athlete's hitting 250 watts coming out of that water right there, and that is purely because it is a sharp pitch up, and you need to get going right away. After that, it becomes it's still a battle going onto that loop. So getting to the loop is not a cakewalk. It's very, very easy for athletes to really, really explode on this little section right through here. Very, very easy, almost too easy. You have some places where the wind does shield you a bit, or you're shielded from the wind a bit, but That's only a false sense of hope because it doesn't last for very long, and B, you're going to make some turns over there and it's going to just be a headwind. So do not go super crazy because it's not beneficial through that section. The power will be high at certain points purely because of the terrain, not because of your effort levels through that point. Going on to the meat of the course right through here, let's highlight it for you guys. One. Oh, I messed up. So this is the meat of the course right here. In this section, you got 1,200 feet of that 1,200 feet of that 1,800 that you are going to cover right through here. It is at this point that the race is won and lost, mostly. During this top section right here, you're going to experience a lot of headwind, usually out on race day. You're also going to experience there's only two real hills out on this course. The first one is right here at mile 16.5, and the second one you will get at about mile 19.5, maybe a little bit further, but right around 19.5. These two hills are suckers, right? What they do is they suck you in and they want you to crush them. If you were riding that hill on any other day, you would be able to absolutely destroy the hill, no problem. If you do that out on this day, then you're going to pay for it later on. Probably not the first or second time up these two hills, right? But that third or fourth time you do it, it's going to be very, very tough. And that fourth time, if you keep doing it, things are going to go south very, very quickly. It happens every year. You'll see some of the front runners not respect some of these hills or just watch the power that they're putting out. And after that, right here at mile 40, right when they go up this hill again, they usually pay for it right around the 48 to 50 mile mark through there. And we'll talk about that section in a second. Water stops, there's going to be one here and one here. I believe they have specifics out here. Yep. We have 15, 26, 35, and 46. That is 1, 2, 3, 4. I would argue if you're pushing over 20 miles an hour, you can skip one of these aid stations, but not the first or the last one. If you are around 18 miles an hour, then these 4 aid stations aren't all critical, but you probably should get something at each of them. If you're below 18, then you definitely need to be hitting all 4 of these aid stations here. Something to note, when you make this turn for this second loop, it's a very, very sharp turn. People almost always overdo it right here. So again, this is another spot where you should be in a easier gear coming into this corner right here, purely because the speed's going to be so low, corner's tight, and you're going to be turning into that headwind. It's going to allow you to get up to speed a lot faster than being in a super big gear. And so watch your power targets over the course of that circle. Again, if you're looking at everything here, it looks really, really crazy. If we zoom in on one of these loops here, this is one loop, and the power is actually pretty steady, right? There are some changes, but once you do make those changes, you're doing it for a mile at a time. There's only a couple different places where it's not that. Now let's go on to the last section out on course where you can totally throw your race away, and that is coming back in here. What usually happens, like we talked about before, is people overdo those 2 big hills and they have a little too much fun on these 2 laps. And this whole way in becomes dreadful. No matter if it's a tailwind or a crosswind, it just becomes almost impossible. If that is the case for you, do not force things here. It is a net downhill. You're still going to be going up and down, right? Make sure you're locked in that arrow position, getting out every couple of minutes, but when you're in it, be in it. And just get home, right? Don't be afraid to drop the power by 50 watts and just keep putting tension on the chain and just get there. Just get back to transition. If you try to race back to transition when you're in that bad spot, you're not going to make it, and you'll have 5 or 6 miles of some serious issues here. If you are having a great day, this is a place where you can get probably 3 or 4 minutes on some of your competitors if you are consistently tapping out your pace still. This is going to be a huge thing if you're hitting your nutrition and your hydration. If you are, keep doing it. If you're having a great day, again, do not overdo it here. The race is pretty much done out on this point. Another area where you can get suckered in, and I highlight this from where I do, because when you come back in here, you're going to make this left-hand turn and you're going to think, oh, the park's right there. It's actually not. It's a lot further than you think. So we got 52 almost even, and that's 53.2 right there. So you have a mile almost and a quarter until you get to that race or that park entrance. And in your head, you're going to be thinking, I can't wait to get there. It's just going to be a free walk downhill or a free ride downhill, and it's not the case. So if you are one of those people that just say, I can't wait to get to the park, you're going to be very surprised to learn that when you come back in, you're actually going to have to continue that work all the way back in the state park, and it will be a huge mental battle that you are not going to be able to win. So right here, expect to work pretty much until you can see the lake, for sure. And if you do that, you'll be in a much better headspace going back into town, and then you'll be able to put that power out for a little bit longer. There'll be times at which you can stand up, stretch the legs out, absolutely, but don't expect that to be the whole time, because it's not. It is definitely not. Zooming in here. Let's see if we can get a new section here. Zooming in a little bit further here, you can see what I'm talking about a little bit better. So again, it's a false flat, negative 0.2, 0.4. There's a couple times where it goes to 1.5 negative. But up until you pass the trail parking, right, then it starts to go down a bit. But even still, it's 2.5% at the max right there until you're able to see the water. Then it really dumps you down 3, 4, 5.5%, and that's a big reason why a lot of people overcook that line that we talked about earlier, because they've wanted to go fast this whole time, and now is the time for them to go fast. But if you really think about it, we're at mile 55.6. What is the urgency or the major need to get that last 0.5 or 0.3 in? You know, on this course, it's really not a whole lot. Again, you're going to save 2, maybe 3 seconds out here. So that is the course off in a nutshell. And let's go to the run. Okay, so this is this is the 70.3 run, but this is only one loop of it. Okay, so there's 3 loops out here. Couple of big things to note: water stops. I got little water cups for you right through here so you can see where those water stations are out on course. We've also have stars to highlight key areas out on that run course, which you will experience twice on each lap, so 6 times total. These purple bars right here just break down the run course sections for you. So I break things down into a couple different sections for you here. Your target race power. This is an example of an athlete that's going to have a target race power of about 215 watts. When you are at that target power, it's going to be your steady power, your race power. Those are going to be the green zones. You can see those green zones will start to add up after a while. When we're going uphill, we are pumping the pace up by 220 to 240 watts. So quite substantial over that. There will be a couple times where it might be a little bit higher, but you can shoot there for a nice little goal. You can see we have 1 area here, 2, 3, and 4 for each loop. Last area is the downhill areas. You can see there's a couple of different sections right through here, 4 to be exact. And these sections are primarily just to get you thinking about your race strategy. I realize that there is uphills and downhills mixed in with some of these sections, like section number 4 right here. There's going to be an uphill and a downhill. When you are going uphill, strive for some of those upward trajectory targets. When you're going a little bit flatter or on some undulating territory, try to hit that race power mark. When you are going downhill, keep that form together, and I'm not going to say go as high as you can, but don't be afraid to give away some of that power right through there, because you're not going to be doing it for very long. It's going to be over faster right? So keep that running form. That's going to be the biggest key over power right there. I'm much more interested in you keeping the form during these sections. So again, when you come out on the lake, right, for that first or whatever loop, there's going to be an opportunity to start to hit that target power. Right at the very beginning of the first loop, don't feel like you have to get to that race target power, because you don't. Start building up there, feeling out your legs. And I probably should have put more of a blue marker right through there for that first loop, but this is a repeat one. So build up to that point. The very first section of the uphill increased power right through here. Again, you don't have to get there right away. All right, let the hill come to you. It's gonna come to you fast. So don't feel like you have to hit those targets right away, especially on the first loop. Slowly ramp things up. Start off in the steady area, race target, and then slowly ramp up to some of this higher power outputs over here. And if you look at the distance markers right here, this is half a mile right here. So after half a mile, you've climbed up the bulk of that big hill. You have to do a little bit more, but a lot of it is already done after half a mile. It's going to feel like it drags on forever, so just battle up this hill, especially for the first lap, and just get up it. Okay, when you are running, hit those targets, and if you have to walk, you have to walk. I totally get it. And once you get back up to this section right here, you should be probably at that steady power output or your race target output through this section right here. This sections right here and here are going to be key. I would argue that this is going to be a little bit more key right through here. You're going to have a lot of people that walk through this section. There's a lot more time over the people that walk in this section right here. So these two sections are both key, but this section is going to be a lot more important than the first one right here. I still want you walking and running. If you do elect to walk a little bit through this point right here, don't make it a thing to walk up the whole point if you can, and you'll be in a much better spot. So this section is the key section, the first key section out on course. Then they're going to dump you down back through there, and then you're going to climb back up again. So again, when you can, get up there. Get up to that target power output right there, because it's going to drop you down again. Form, going to be key right through here. This is going to be where you're dropping through. I can show you. The cabin loop right throughout here. And this is actually a better representation of the swim course, believe it or not, which is very interesting. And then you're going to start climbing back up through that point, right? So that's mile 2. If you look at the, where did it go? Mile 2 is right here. And then you start to climb back up. And again, we're going to start to increase the power right through here, and you're going to cool off a little bit right when you get to the top of that hill before you dive immediately into another bigger section right through here. The last key section out on course is this undulating section over here right before they drop you down back onto the pretty much the lake through there. And there's going to be a couple of aid stations. There is going to be one right in the middle of this key section right through here. Drop you down again, and this is the finish area right through here. And this steady section, because it's a loop, is going to last a little bit longer because you have some on the back end and then some on the front end again. This is a little bit of an ambitious plan, so if you feel like this is too much, don't be afraid to back things down at any point here. Okay, again, the big key on this course is going to be your running form. The power will come as long as your form is there. So find the form first and then start to target some of those power output zones that you have. Check your training peaks for specific zones for you to hit, and you will likely have a graph such as this to help you through. If you're targeting things like this, like the Olympic right here, and you have an average pace target right here, you can still do the exact same thing with this. You can see here the Olympics a little bit different, but just ignore that. You can see that on the uphills, they're going to be given a little bit more time away, right? And on the downhills, they're going to be getting it back a little bit more. Again, feel yourself out on race day. Feel it out. How are you reacting? Once you start, you don't have to start at the very, very limit, right? You need to build yourself up to that point, but just know where your race target pace is, and then start to give away some time on the uphills or get it back on some of those downhills, right? You can even have an average pace marker. A lot of the athletes have an average power marker for stuff like this. So that is the half. Let's dive into the Olympic and the sprint. Olympics going to be the same thing. I'm going to run through this a little bit quicker here. For the Olympic, I would argue that on this course, there's going to be probably enough people where you can go a little bit faster out on the swim, purely because you have some of that draft and a lot of people helping pull you along. If there isn't, I want you to treat it exactly like the half that we talked about earlier. Go with the crowd and then find your pace, probably at this third buoy right here. If you reach here and say, hey, I am way too fast, please, please, please drop back. Do not wait until this last buoy or last third buoy over here. Right at this first one, evaluate what is happening. Okay. If you think that there's a group just ahead of you and you want to make that push, go for it. But if you get to that group and they are totally flying and you're unable to keep up, it's unrealistic. You need to check in with yourself. It's fun to race, but only smartly. If you reach to this point and you find that you are ahead of everyone, again, drop the pace down a little bit and just maintain your speed right through here. This first turn buoy, half, sprint, Olympic, whatever distance, is going to be crowded for sure. That is a staple at most of these events. A lot of people just come together at these turn buoys right through here. Sighting should not be an issue here, but for whatever reason, people don't like to turn. Again, this distance is going to be a little bit further apart than you want it to be. Don't let that distract you or take away from your swimming. The last turn buoy right here, very, very common at this swim to take this turn and to just stop. Turn, don't stop. Even if you're completely off track, the triangle, right, geometry, you're going to be much better off if you keep swimming right away and then correct later on than if you stop and then go. Okay, you're going to be wasting a lot of time if you do that. You should be watching where that other buoy is when you are swimming anyway. You should be able to see it for race day success right through there. Watch which way you're going. If it's pushing you left, go right. If it's pushing you right, go left. And then start to increase the speed of your kick at this second to last sighting buoy right through here. This is the Olympic distance right here. This is the Olympic distance right through here. I'm going to change this to make it look like an actual map for you guys. As you can see, the same setup coming out of the park right through there. What is different this time is that they go in a counterclockwise loop rather than a clockwise loop for the half. So make sure you got your head on a swivel and you're watching out for other competitors out on race day. I don't know if they're going to change this. I would imagine they would be. But I don't know. So make sure that you keep an eye out on that on race day. A couple of important sections you need to know about. Obviously, we talked about the first one coming out of the park already. Second one, you're going to be doing the opposite of what the half people are, at least right now. You're going to be climbing up this hill right through here. And again, this is going to be a crushing hill. It's just going to be a 2.5 to 3.5 percenter right through there. So you'll be able to stay in the small or in the big chain ring for sure, most of you guys, and just make sure that you stay positive through this area. This is going to be probably one of the harder sections out on course. You will have what is typical, a wind coming from the east, so you're going to have that crosswind going and attacking your bike from the dirty side of your bike, slowing you down a little bit more. Once you get to the top, though, you will take a left-hand turn, and you're going to have a net downhill for a long time over here. So that is 9 miles, and that's going to last until about 15 miles. Most of this, you're going to have a tailwind as well. So this section out on course is going to be one of the faster sections of course. If you are going to be giving away time anywhere, it's going to be during this section through here, purely because if you're going 26 miles an hour and you give up a couple of seconds to stretch or whatever and then get back up to 26 miles an hour, you're going to lose a lot less time off of a competitor versus area such as the one we just talked about, where if you stop for a second or two, you're going to lose 5-10 seconds very, very quickly, a lot quicker than on that net downhill section right through there. So an opportunity to gain on someone else is going to be in this section right through here before you get to that tailwind. And then the fun kind of starts for the Olympic. If you want to create any separation, you're going to be doing it on these 3 hills right through here, right before you get back on track of the main drag through here. What typically happens is there is a little bit of a surge on this first one. There is separation on the second one, and then it just gets worse and worse after that. So typically the hill that does it for most people where they're battling isn't this first hill or the other hills, it's this second hill, just because there's a lot of gradient change versus here where it purely just shears up right through here. So if you are tracking with someone or you want to make a move off of someone, you're going to do it here and then maintain some of those efforts up over the course over there. If you look at the area that I'm talking about is right here. We're going to take the speed away. And I selected wrong. If you look at this section that I'm talking about right here, you can see that some of the power will be higher at these other ones. This first and third one, purely because of that gradient that's there. But this is the one where there's separation that happens the most. If you do find yourself on the wrong side of an athlete you're tracking or an age group that you want to win, and the person that is there pulls away, you're going to be able to potentially get some back here if that person blows up. So don't panic yet, because there's a couple other places where you can pull things back. You can see that this power profile is a bit more jagged than the half if you watch that. And that is because of the elevation that you have right through here. So right through here we got a 3. This first hill is about 3.5, 4%. There's an 8% mixed in there. This is a steady 4.5 and a 5%, and then it's just jagged through here. That's why you have some of the power increases that you do here, purely to get up and over some of these hills. I would watch and keep track of some of those targets, right? So you know where you're around going to be. You can also program this into your most of your bike computers at this point can do that. So you can have targets racing with you the whole time. But when you are not going uphill, you need to be mindful of what targets you're trying to hit. What is your power output that you should be at over the course of this whole race? Make sure you check your cheat sheets because those are going to be super, super, super beneficial for you. Zooming out again, going on to the trickiest part of the course. This is the last section out through here. And this is the same section that we talked about with the other one, with the half. You're gonna go the whole bike thinking that you just want to get to the end where you can cruise in, and that's not going to be the case. When you get here, you're still having to put some of that power out pretty much up until the end. So view this as a full 25-mile race, not a 20-mile race. You know what I mean? If you do that, you'll be in a much, much, much better spot coming back into the park. Okay, and this is the run course. You do not do the cabin loop over here, but you still do this 2 times. You do this 2 times. When you do this, you are probably going to experience something like this. Something like this. Again, this is very, very similar to what we talked about before. The half is a little bit less undulating than the Olympics, a little less undulating than the half, the one we just talked about. The key areas out on course are going to be right after the big uphills. And that is because, like we talked about before, if you walk on this section, you're going to be giving a lot of time away. So I would rather you go a little bit slower on the uphill, watching power, of course, and then using that energy you save to get back on these key areas, the star areas. And you'll be able to hit some of these other areas a lot easier if you do be careful on some of these uphill areas. And just like we talked about for the half, I totally realize that this is undulating terrain, so when you're going uphill, you can kind of target some of those uphill numbers. But once you get to the top of that uphill, you need to back things down and say, okay, what section am I in? Where should my power relatively be in order for race day success? Okay, that is what is going to set yourself up for success. So make sure you check that. I'm going to talk to you guys on a lot more individual basis, a lot more macro levels, so we can talk about your specific race day targets. Weather out on course is going to be coming from the east, so expect that starting from here, going over here, and that's also going to contribute to some of the course difficulty coming back in.